Hey, everybody, listen, I have an interview right now that is coming up. This is a special drop for y'all. It's with Avi Lipkin from Israel. He's joining me. This is one you're going to want to like and share and subscribe. You're going to share it with everybody that you know. But for the full interview, you're going to need to check it out over on the app. We have everything there. But right now, get ready to have your socks rocked. God bless you guys, and let's roll with Avi Lipkin. Hey, everybody, welcome to Hope for Our Times. And let me tell you, I have a guest on today. Never had him on this program before. We've met before, spoken at conferences before, but I've been following this gentleman for decades, and that's not an exaggeration. Avi Lipkin, he's joining us all the way from Israel. Thank you, Avi, for joining us.
Great to be with you.
This is fabulous. So let's just get this whole thing started with a bang, literally with a bang. And then I'm going to do a little bit more of the introduction to you. But just so everybody knows, so Avi, I was listening to a cassette of yours back in 2001. That's way back, almost 25 years ago. And I had followed you. I'd followed Chuck Missler in the 90s. And you had mentioned September 11, 2001, that there's going to be a terrorist attack. The World Trade Centers were going to be hit by planes that were going to be taken by these terrorists. And I think it was in August that I listened to it. And then come around September, it happened. I just find that very interesting. Many people, they've called you a prophet. Avi, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you have to say about that? And then we're going to work right on through to where we are today.
Okay, well, firstly, I have to tell you that I met my wife on a bus 55 years ago, and it was a marriage directly from God. It was, anyway, my wife got a job. She worked 35 years as an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government, the Israeli radio. And she'd come home every day from work and say, I don't understand my bosses. I pick up all this information, and they don't want to use it. And she was picking up 5 years before 9/11 that they were going to attack the World Trade Center. She'd, write everything down, type everything down, give it to her bosses at the Israeli radio. They were all socialist leaders there. And they looked at what she wrote, and they crumpled up the page, and they threw it in the garbage. And they said, they'll never, the Arabs talk too much, they'll never do it. And my wife said to them, listen, I'm picking up the information. My job is to give it to you. What you do with it is you'll be punished by God if you don't use it. So she gave it to me. I put it in my very first book, is Fanatic Islam, A Global Threat, in 1997. Everybody attacked me. They said, Avi's against the Muslims. And anyway, finally, when it happened, they said, Avi's a prophet. I said, I'm not a prophet. I just listened to my wife. I would not have known this had I not married Rachel. So anyway, I have to add another thing also, that there's a very famous counterterrorism expert in Washington, D.C. by the name of Stephen Emerson. And he prepared in 1993, he prepared a PBS 1-hour video called Jihad in America. And at that time, in 1993, it was right after the first attack on the World Trade Center, in which Ramzi Youssef built a truck bomb, and it blew up under the World Trade Center, killing 6 and injuring 1,000 people, but the towers held. And so he was explaining why, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And so it was a given, together with my wife's information. Listen, the World Trade Center was scheduled to be toppled on Wall Street, literally a crash on Wall Street. And the plan of Saddam Hussein at that time was to destroy the American economy. I was just reporting on the information I was collecting. Intelligence is like a jigsaw puzzle, and you put all the pieces together and you get a picture. The problem is certain people with preconceptions, they don't want to accept it.
So here in the States, you have a lot of people that say that it was staged by the U.S., the World Trade Centers. I hear a lot of different conversations on it. What are your thoughts when you look at that, when you hear those things?
Listen, you see the killings going on around the world. You see Muslims, you see ISIS beheading of Christians and Jews, Yazidis, Shiites. Then the U.S. military goes into Syria and Iraq to wipe out ISIS. Now you have the Shiites doing the same thing under the direction of Iran. There's so much crazy stuff going on, which is not like what they were saying about the alternative theories about the World Trade Center. Islam is the threat. There might be some shenanigans here and there, but I don't waste time with these conspiracy theories. I deal with Islam because Islam is so crazy, and yes, they do want to conquer the world. I would say one thing about the globalists. The globalists do exist. And it could be that the globalists will use the craziness of the Muslims for red flags.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a more than a probability. Appears to be going that direction with open borders and different things. But apart from that, let me go back to the Obama administration. He makes an agreement with Iran for the nuclear issue, gives them billions of dollars, and at the same time, I've read and watched different podcasts that Obama's intention was to create a new Ottoman Empire over in the Mideast with Iran in charge of it. So if Israel wanted to do anything, they'd be subject to both Iran and the U.S. Do you know anything about that?
Well, firstly, let me go back again to my wife. My wife, Rachel, picked up a broadcast, and I don't know, do you know Pastor in Florida, in Milton, Florida? My brain is not functioning. I'll remember his name in a moment. And he picked up something that I did with Gary Stearman. At that time, it was Prophecy in the News. Today, Gary Stearman is with the new name, with a new group called Prophecy Watchers. I love them very much. And what my wife picked up was that President Obama, in his very, very first action after he got inaugurated in January 2009, he went to Egypt. And he met with students at the Cairo University. He met with the Egyptian foreign minister also. And then I'm going to come back to this in just a second. Carl Gallups. Okay. The pastor I'm talking about is Carl Gallups. Anyway, he picked up what I did with with Gary Stearman. So anyway, what happened was there was a TV. Again, all of this is in Arabic. My wife is picking this stuff up. Nobody in the Israeli radio wants to listen to anything she's saying. But what happened was that the Egyptian foreign minister was debating with some Muslim Brotherhood people in 2009, right after, was it after the, the years are going by.
Yeah.
And the Egyptian foreign minister said to the Muslim Brotherhood people, you guys are crazy. You got to calm down. Don't worry about Israel. President Obama was here, and he said to me that he said that don't worry about Israel. We have the elections. I don't know when you're going to air this, but elections are coming up on Tuesday in 5 days. And I don't know, even if Trump wins, will the Democrats take this quietly, or are they going to pull a red flag? There might be a red flag plan. They've got 2.5 months to establish military, left-wing military law in the United States. We've got to pray for Trump's victory, and then we've got to pray for Trump to stay alive until January 20th. So, I've been watching this. I'm 75 years old. I've been watching all these elections. I voted for Trump 3 times. My son Aaron mobilized 100 people to send in their absentee ballots to the United States. So, we are solidly with Trump, but it's not over. Even if he wins, it's not over because you don't know what the Democrat Party can do. And you know who's calling the shots? Obama. You think Biden is calling the shots, except for garbage? Except for garbage, he's not going to. And Kamala Harris, I can't understand how people call themselves intelligent and they vote for her. I don't understand it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So looking at this moving forward, If we were to take the current affairs, we have what's happened with the pagers, the walkie-talkies. We've seen what Israel has done to Iran with when they went into Iran, they targeted the military installations by Israel. So where do you see this going? How's Iran going to respond? Will they respond? Has Israel at this point pulled enough teeth of Iran so it's set back Iran significantly with any time frame being able to do anything against Israel?
Okay, well, firstly, I have the memory of an elephant. As my wife says, a very selective memory. And I remember that the Iranian leadership, when they were 70 million, this is like 15 years ago, and they said, we can lose 35 million people in a war against Israel. We will be left with 35 million, but we will still defeat Israel. So when you have an insane leadership that says something like this, I think that the Israeli government, okay, let's go back to when we were in school in America. And, like, hold me back. So we have the situation with Iran where the United States is saying to Israel, don't attack the oil and gas, don't attack the nuclear project, and only attack military targets. So Israel attacked military targets a week ago. But what happened was they also attacked one place, which is nuclear, and they attacked another place, which is gas and oil. And the Iranians are saying, we are going to attack immediately. This is coming very soon. The Israelis say, we will know from the satellites when they're getting ready to launch rockets, and then we will attack first. I'm like, there's so much disinformation there. Personally, I think that there will be an attack, there will be a war with Iran a day or two before the elections. We're talking about the next 2 or 3 days.
Wow. So you think Iran will actually attempt to do something to Israel before that? Wow.
Yes, and I think, one of the problems with the Iranian leadership is they have an arrogance that goes back 3,500 years to the early days of Iran's, it was Persia then. They cannot tolerate the idea that Israel is an upstart for them, that Israel attacked them and got away with it. The war in Lebanon, the war with Gaza, will be decided by the war with Iran. And our fear, I'm not an Israeli representative. I have no right to say what I'm saying. I'm telling you this from my heart and what I know, and that is that we cannot wait for God forbid, for Kamala to be elected. And so we are going to overturn the apple cart in the next 5 days. This is what I believe. I may be wrong. I've been wrong many times before. But from what I know of Iran, they will attack, and we will attack them just before they attack us. That's the way I see it. So all of this has to come down in the next week.
Yeah. Do you have confidence in Israel's victory in that?
Absolutely. Not only that, the attack last week was the first wave. We have 3 or 4 waves. And one of them is the oil and gas, the energy. Another one of the waves is the nuclear project. We've been warning about the nuclear project for many years now, and the U.S. government, under many presidents, keeps looking the other way or doing things which are futile. So Israel will also attack the nuclear project. Israel will also, you remember, you were talking about beepers and walkie-talkies and all kinds of funny things, right? We know where the Iranian leadership is. We've taken out the Gaza leadership. We've taken out the Beirut, the Hezbollah leadership. We have done nothing until we finish off the Iranian leadership. And you know who's cheering us on? The Iranian people.
That's
the Iranians have had enough of this. And nobody's helping them. Israel is fighting the war of civilization against barbarism.
Yeah. And so when I look at that, I hear a lot of reports and have friends that are Persian or Iranian, and They are saying it's constantly the people of Iran want Israel to be victorious. The people of Iran are not supportive of their government. They know the government in Iran is very oppressive to them. And then over here in the States, it's been disclosed that there's at least one spy, probably several, that work for Iran, that supply Iran information on Israel. But you look at the U.S. administration, the U.S. administration not only has that problem, but also seems to be very anti-Israel. When it comes to Gaza, they said don't go into Rafah. Well, you can go against Iran, but don't target their, like you said, the nuclear or oil and gas facilities. But
Right.
the U.S., what are your thoughts? The U.S. is constantly trying to tie the hands of Israel, and it's been this way for a long time. But it seems like Israel is starting to say, you know, we've had enough. We're going to do what we need to do. What are your thoughts going forward with that in the U.S. administration currently with the constant restraints?
You know, when I moved to Israel 55 years ago, I remember that the American population was 250 million. Today, the American population is 350 million. Nobody is talking about where all these immigrants came from. And, you know, I used to do radio shows with Michael Medved. And I'm sure you know Michael Medved. Great guy, Jewish guy, very conservative. And at first, when he read my book in 1997, which I gave to him personally, he was angry with me because he said it was all fantasy. On 9/11, he calls me and he said, he apologizes. He says, you were 100% right about the attack on the World Trade Center. And I apologize. Then I got very close to him. I stayed in his home 4 times on weekends, on Sabbath, Shabbat. I did maybe 20 shows with him. We were very close. One day, I let it slip that, in my opinion, there are 20 million Muslims in America. And he said to me, I can't have you on my shows anymore because you're exaggerating. And exaggerating is a form of lying. America today is, I would say, kowtowing to 30 million Muslims in preference over 6 million Jews, because the Jews are no longer number 2. Even President Obama, if you go back to his inauguration address in January 2009, he said, America is a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu country. You have 6 million Jews in America. It's true they're married to 4 million Christians. So really what we're talking about is a judeo-christian population in America. And you probably know that I have founded a judeo-christian political party to run for the Knesset. And one of the reasons I believe it's going to succeed is that there's going to be a tremendous exodus, I believe, of Jews and Christians from America to Israel. Obviously, if a Jew is being persecuted and has a Christian spouse, the Jew will take the Christian spouse and the Christian children to Israel. I believe his population is going to double because we're going to have 10 million Judeo-Christians and more making Aliyah to Israel. That's why the Judeo-Christian Bible Block Party that I'm the founder of, and my website is Biblical Alliance, is that Jews and Christians are going to have to stand together in Jerusalem and in the land of Israel. Our borders are going to grow, not because we want the borders to grow. Islam is so crazy that they forced us into Gaza. We didn't want to go to Gaza. They forced us into Lebanon. We didn't want to go into Lebanon. What's happening is Islam is so innately crazy that they will not stop until they are destroyed by us, because they will force us either to be destroyed or destroy them. And unfortunately, in America, the Muslim presence is so overwhelming, and there's so much overwhelming money of Islam in America that I think that there's a problem today that America increasingly is going to turn against Israel. I will say also another thing. I had lunch 2 years ago with a neo-Nazi in the Villages in Florida. And I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi. I just knew he was a militiaman. And we had an excellent time, excellent lunch. And he was saying, Avi, you know, you're a special guy because you're a Jew, but you're not crazy like the left-wing Jews. You are like us. You agree with everything we agree. I said, yes, I believe in Christian nationalism because America has to be Christian or it will be destroyed. And when America is destroyed, Israel is destroyed. So I think there's no debate about it. And he said to me, what do you think about defund the police? I said, well, defund the police is a disaster because you're going to have murder and chaos and everything's going to be upside down in America. He said, no, you're wrong, he said to me. I said, why? Because we were 3 million militia members before the killing of George Floyd. Today, we're not 3 million, we are 30 million. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kill the Jews in America. And when he said that, I said to him, listen, you'll have to excuse me. I can't sit with you anymore. If you are calling for the destruction of my people, I can't sit with you. Interestingly, they're saying that when Reagan was elected, he had 38% of the Jewish vote. They're saying this time it'll be a record. It'll be 40 or 50% of the Jews will vote for Trump. Not because they like Trump, but because Kamala is a sworn enemy of America, and she's a sworn enemy of the Jewish people, sworn enemy of Israel. I think America is now hanging in judgment in front of God. It's all going to come down on these elections. So you can understand why I'm so vehement about Trump being elected and Trump being prayed for and defended. We shouldn't take it for granted that some crazy Democrats will do crazy things, because it's not that they're Democrats, they're Marxists, they're socialists, they're communists. And I think one of the problems in America, I'm a Sovietologist. I can't talk about Soviet Union. I can't talk about what the Soviets did to the whites. I can't talk about anything. I can't talk about Islam. And, I have to tell you, I used to lecture a lot in England. I used to lecture a lot in Canada. I would be arrested if I went to Canada or England. And you know what? They're working to pass the same hate laws in America that if you speak against another religion, and I'm saying Islam is not a religion. Islam is a criminal psychosis bent on the destruction of the entire human race. So, I'm not a popular guy, except for maybe with people like you, with Christians in America. And I've got my own crowd of people, but it's hard to explain to people why they have to be ready to pick up weapons and fight. Because the Democrats are going to be ready to pick up weapons and fight.
Yeah, interesting. The Democrats who are, let's take all the guns away, are the ones who the shooting seemed to come from. Isn't that rather, I just find that a rather interesting fact. When we look at Israel, you mentioned you're going to have these Jews along with their Christian spouses immigrating to Israel, doing their Aliyah. So I have a friend recently that did that. He's Jewish, his wife is Christian. They moved there near the Tel Aviv area. So where would they move? Amir Avivi has suggested that, but also, do you see the 30 million Muslims? I mean, we watch what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan. We watch what's happening in Minneapolis. There's now a call to prayer. I think it's in Minneapolis. To me, it's pretty unbelievable, but we are experiencing this here in the States slowly. But I mean, do you see a big uprising? Do you see terror attacks coming here?
Listen, the next teaching I did after Legacy of Hate with Chuck Missler was called Sleeping in America. And I was explaining in Sleeping in America how the Muslims are embedded. This was in 2002, 2003. The Muslims are coming across the border. If you have a farm and you raise cows or horses, every animal has to have a chip. It has to be identified and identifiable by the authorities. But human beings can come across the border freely, and they get away from the American Border Patrol and from the police. There's absolutely zero control over what's going on the borders. I don't have to tell you. You know all of these things. American Christians are asleep. American Jews are not asleep. American Jews are comatose. The Jews will end up fleeing from America or face death. And probably will save them? The Christian spouses. Because the Christians have their heads screwed on right and they see there's something wrong. The Jews are Bolsheviks. They are locked into an ideology from the Russian Revolution from over 100 years ago. I'm a Sovietologist. I know what I'm talking about. The only country that's worth anything in the world is the United States. Why? Because it's a Christian country. It's a judeo-christian country. And so I'm very proud to be on your show with you. I have 3 Zooms every week. Same people, for over 2 years. And I don't know who listens to your show. I don't know who listens to any show. God is telling me you've got to talk and talk and talk until everyone gets the message. So we're going to see what happens. I'm very, very excited, but also very concerned about Tuesday and the aftermath of Tuesday. Because even if Trump wins, which I pray he wins, it's not the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if Trump wins, that the courts are going to be tied up, that we're going to have, I do believe we're going to have a lot of lawlessness on the streets too. I mean, all we got to do is go back to George Floyd, BLM, Antifa, see those things that were happening before. I think that will increase significantly because the powers that be don't want Trump. Trump's very favorable to Israel. Israel, when I look at it, is a problem for the globalist agenda because they want a submissive Israel. Obama's agenda, hey, let's have this Ottoman Empire with Iran in charge. So Israel, the way they're doing things now, I think is very problematic for these people who want this global kingdom or want control on everything. I was talking with a friend of mine, Jewish friend. I used to do his TV show with him several years ago. And I said, what's it going to take to fulfill the prophecies where the Jews are going to return from the north, the south, the east, and the west? I said, because here in America, they're already starting to leave Europe. But here in America, they've got it pretty easy. And then he talked about Miami Beach, Hollywood, all these different areas in America where there's success and everything. And he said it's going to take, something's going to happen in America. There's going to be a great anti-Semitic revolt against the Jews. And he says it's going to happen because the prophecies will be fulfilled, but God is going to bring his people back to Israel. And it sounds like that's what you're saying. You see, I see it also. You know, you can watch the uptick in anti-Semitism. We see what's happened here in the universities across America, paid protesters. But a lot of this is funded by these, by what? Qatar? Qatar has funded it. Some of this, other Islamic regimes have funded these things, but it's very bad. So you're seeing an increase in this. Where are the Jews going to live when they're doing the Aliyah with their Christian spouses, judeo-christian movement towards Israel? Where are they going to live? Because there's so much world pressure and U.S. pressure against any immigration into areas of Judea and Samaria. Do you think, I mean, there's places for the Jews to live, but it's the world pressure against Israel that is significant.
Okay, I'm going to say something which I'm sure you will not vilify me, but there may be people listening to this show who will say the guy's crazy. We have a book called the Bible. And the Bible talks about the borders of Israel going from the Nile to the Euphrates. Now think about it for a moment. The Jewish people, honestly, are a pacifistic people. We're the exact opposite of fascists. We are not people who want to conquer the Gaza Arabs. We are not people who want to conquer Lebanon. There are other countries that I can start explaining why I believe Israel will go from the Nile to the Euphrates. I believe it's going to happen in my lifetime. I don't know how long. I'm 75. I don't know how long I'm going to live. But we didn't want to go back into Gaza. We didn't give them the keys. We threw the keys at the Gazans. He said, take Gaza. We uprooted 10,000 Jewish people. Just don't shoot rockets at us. What's the first thing they did? They shot rockets at us. What did we do? Nothing. We absorbed all these attacks on us all the time. And it had to be the Nova Party on October 7th, where they killed 1,200 young kids who were just going to have a good time. 1,200 kids. 200 police and military fought without having any preparation. Our military generals were all asleep. Or there are conspiracy theories that there were people in the Israeli military who wanted this to happen. There are people in the Israeli military who thought, well, Netanyahu would be blamed and he'd be forced to quit. There is a globalist plan to overthrow Netanyahu from the prime ministership. I've been following this from day one. But God had other plans, and Israel miraculously survived that attack. Hezbollah in Lebanon was supposed to attack us on the same day, and they had their tunnels under the border into Israel. You know, I have to tell you, In 1996, when Netanyahu was first elected, I got a call from some Messianic people in Colorado, and one of them is dead, died. The other one, I don't know. I don't want to mention names. They came to me and they said to me, "We have just received information that there's going to be a war within 24 hours with Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're going to occupy the north of Israel. There's going to be an invasion of the Golan Heights by Syria and Iraq." And my wife also told me that there's movement of heavy military trucks from the Abu Kamal border crossing in Iraq into Syria. Saudi Arabia asked the United States to shift the satellites away from Saudi Arabia because, you know, the Saudis have nuclear weapons from the Chinese and the Pakistanis. This is all in my third book. Anyway, and Egypt was having its military exercises, which were going to lead into an attack on Israel. This was already after we handed over all of Sinai to Egypt. Egypt is a bad player here. Egypt wants to attack Israel. That's why we're talking about from the Nile to the Euphrates, because Egypt is going to make a big mistake. Anyway, I called my commander in the middle of the night. I called the Prime Minister's office in the middle of the night, and both of them said, "Don't worry, it's okay if you call us late. You call us anytime you have important information." A week later, no, there wasn't a war. And a week later, I get another call from my Messianic friends in Colorado, and they say to me, "Well, we have new coordinates for the attack on Israel." I called the Prime Minister's office. I called the military commander. They said, "Thank you very much." There was no war. 3 years ago, I had coffee with my former commander and the IDF spokesman. I said, "What happened with the war?" He said, "Well, Tony Blair," remember Tony Blair, Prime Minister of England? He stopped it. Everything was given over to him, and he defused the war. In other words, I don't know what role personally I played. It's not important. The important thing is that the war was avoided, but it was because Netanyahu had been elected as Prime Minister of Israel, and the world wanted to get rid of him. The world always wants to get rid of him. I can't believe it. This guy is unbelievable. Netanyahu is the right man in the right place at the right time. He has done so much for Israel, but the people who want to overthrow him are the same globalists directed from Washington. There's a lot of hanky-panky going on here. Okay. So I didn't answer your question. Where will the Jews and Christians go to live?
But that was a great answer for what you shared was fantastic. Okay, now where will the Jews and Christians live?
Okay, now Ariel Sharon, you know why we pulled out of Gaza? We pulled out of Gaza because we knew they were digging tunnels. This was in 2005, 2006. But he also said something else. We have 10,000 Jewish settlers in Gaza, but unless we have a massive aliyah of Jews from America, 1 million, 2 million Jews, we can't hold these territories. And the world is against us. So let's just get out of Gaza, throw the keys at the Gazans. That's what we did. And it got turned into a massive underground tunnel terror country against Israel. Same with Hezbollah in Lebanon. So we didn't want to go back into Gaza, but God does not ask us. God has a plan. He's not asking us, and God is forcing us to go back into Gaza. Nobody wants to talk peace from the Arab side. U.S. government is trying to pressure Israel in a bad way. I believe when things really go south in the United States, and I don't think it's if, I think it's when, after these elections, I think we're going to see millions of Jews coming with the Christian spouses, and we're going to settle them in Gaza. There's already talk in Israel about resettling the settlements that were overturned by the Israeli military in 2006. Wait a second, they're not finished. We were 4 times in Gaza, and we're back. Not because we want to, just leave us alone. We want to live in peace. No, God has another plan. Lebanon, we were 4 times in Lebanon. And now we're back in Lebanon. Why did we start it? No, they started it. Because the bottom line is kill every Jew in the world. So that's Lebanon. It's not over. We're talking about forces it's a Sisyphic battle against the devil. The devil wants to destroy Israel. Israel is the apple of God's eye. And you Christians are with us. I mean, you might not know it exactly, but the time is going to come that the Christian world is going to have a revival, big revival. I'm a Jew who's ready to give my life for a Christian revival. You see how crazy I am?
That's crazy.
Here the rabbis are going nuts with me. What's this business of a judeo-christian party? You want Christians to come and live in Israel? I said, wait a second. Messiah is going to be standing on the Mount of Olives only for the Southern Baptists? He's going to be standing on the Mount of Olives for Jews and Christians. A lot of people are going to be coming to Israel. It's going to be an empire. I'm a megalomaniac because God is a megalomaniac. These borders are not something we wanted. These borders are being forced on us by a satanic enemy. So Jews and Christians, I'll tell you another thing to show you how crazy I am. I believe that our borders will expand all the way, into Lebanon, into Syria. I think Jordan is going to be overthrown by Palestinian fanatics. I think ISIS is going to make a big revival. We're going to have to fight ISIS in Jordan, fight ISIS in Saudi Arabia, fight the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, everyone who hears me thinks I'm crazy, but it's there. It's in the Bible. God says your borders will go from Lebanon to the desert. What's a desert? It's Yemen and Saudi Arabia, and from the Nile to the Euphrates. And you want to know something? We Jews and Christians together are going to make the desert green. Because we have the desalination, we have the sun energy, we can turn the whole Middle East green. It'll be a Garden of Eden. What did God say? Hey, we read it in the Torah this week. What does God say to Adam and Eve? You will tend my garden. Did you ever think, where is it? Why is it when the Jews and Christians are in charge of a country, it's green? When the Muslims come in, it's yellow. It's all burned.
Well, just walking through Jerusalem, I've been there many times, and just being there a few weeks ago, I was with our friend Roddy, and we entered the Kidron Valley through the Arab section. It was on Yom Kippur. It was the day we did it because everything's closed, and we went there, and it was so glaringly obvious for anybody who's never been there before. You could see the difference between the Arab side and the Jewish side. The Arab side was just full of trash. You have the call to prayer. You're thinking, okay, if this is your city, this is the way you take care of your things. Really remarkable when you have the Jewish and the Christian sections. There's a different thought process. So obvious when you go there. I'm going to throw this out there to you. I look at ancient Israel history and find it fascinating. When you look at Gaza, you look at Judea and Samaria, you look at the Golan Heights. What happened? The tribe of Dan didn't want to take the Gaza area. You look at Judea and Samaria, you had the compromise in Israel's, Judah's past. So Nebuchadnezzar comes in, the northern territories before that with Assyria. And then you look at the Golan where Dan relocated and said, hey, you don't have to go to Jerusalem and worship. He builds his fake temple, has his fake priests and everything. And here it is. God says, this is yours. And Israel never took those areas the way that God intended them to be. And as you mentioned, the borders that God gave Israel are much larger than that tiny, tiny, tiny sliver they have. I find it very fascinating. It's like God saying, no, I gave it to you. You are going to take it. And it's like one of those things you can't make up. God is making Israel face these problems that they didn't face 3,000 years ago. Just fascinating. Even before that. Just absolutely fascinating to me.
I don't know. It's like I thank God that I'm alive at this time. You and I are, and anyone listening to this show, watching this show, we are witnesses to the fulfillment of Bible prophecies that you could not say were going to happen a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago. All of a sudden, it's really happening.
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing to be alive right now. Okay, I'll throw out this final question to you. I had, several years ago, I interviewed Yoram Edinger, and he had mentioned, I brought up the money that the U.S. gives to Israel, because, you hear people here in the U.S., they just don't get it. They'll see billions go to Iran, billions, the hundreds of millions that go to the PLO and all these different organizations. and they absolutely are so anti-Israel. Israel shouldn't have anything. And he brought up a simple statement. He said, look, the money that goes to Israel, if the U.S. didn't have Israel here, they'd have to have a fleet, they'd have to have the aircraft carriers right off the border of Israel down by Gaza or Haifa. They'd have to have it would cost them billions upon billions of dollars more. But Israel is the only one that brings stability to that entire region. And you look at what's going on right now, can you help make sense of that for people who just say, hey, we shouldn't be giving Israel any money?
Well, I have to tell you, one of my dreams is to go to Lebanon. Lebanon was the Paris of the Middle East until the Palestinians and the Shiites destroyed it. And when it was a Christian country, it was a paradise. And my prayer is that we will liberate the Lebanese people from the Shiites, liberate them from the terrorists, from Iran. I think this is going to repeat itself in other places. I think Gaza, we have to do in Gaza what the Allies did in West Germany from 1945 to 1947. Give them new educational books. The children have to be re-educated. No more of this Hitler use. Kill the Jews, kill the Christians. Israel will be a stabilizing factor for all these Muslims and all these populations that are intimidated. I'll say another thing also. The Israeli Air Force attack on Iran. You look at the planes. The planes are American. Everything is American. I'm sure the U.S. military is studying very closely the first attack and every other attack that the Israeli Air Force does. The U.S. the U.S. earns billions of dollars from the expertise of the Israeli military. And we're going to see a lot more happening in the next few days. The problem is still that Foggy Bottom is controlled by the swamp. And so we have to be very careful, pray a lot, and the Christians have to get serious about what the left is doing.
So this will be the final question. I thought that was going to be, this will be the final one.
My wife is upstairs. She's not asking why I'm late.
I got two more I got to do. So this will have to be the final one. Okay. I look at Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. God says, through you, all the nations of the world will be blessed. This might seem like a strange thing, but at the same time, you mentioned what Lebanon used to be, what Beirut used to be, the Paris of the second Paris of the world. So when you look at everything that you are saying, could it be that just another way that God is using the hand of Israel to bless the nations, including Lebanon, as you were saying? And
yes.
Listen, Egypt is going to benefit from it. Saudi Arabia will. If you start looking at how it's going to play out, because Iran is the problem, but as Israel militarily does these things, it does appear to be that. That's just another way that prophecy would be fulfilled.
My approach is that we are going to see at the end of the day, tens of millions of Western Jews and Christians moving to Israel, making Aliyah. And my suggestion is to settle everyone in the country surrounding Israel, make Lebanon, again, a Christian country. Syria also has 2 million Christians. The population was 20 million. I have 2 million Shiites, 2 million Christians, 2 million Druze. The Druze, we didn't even talk about them. They're breaking away from the Shiites. The Druze are talking about, all the Druze, about an alliance with the state of Israel. So there's going to be changes. Like I said before, I see the Middle East as turning green because we're going to desalinate. We're going to plant trees everywhere. I think Turkey, which is an enemy, is going to be dismembered, and the Kurds are going to have their state because they have land in Turkey, they have land in Syria, they have land in Iraq, they have land in Iran. I think maybe, I'm not praying for this, but there's a possibility that Iran will be dismembered into the different ethnic groups. The whole map of the Middle East is going to change, and Israel is going to be more and more dominant. But I think, again, the population of Christians is going to grow from 500,000 to about 5 to 10 million, as the Jewish population grows from 8 million to about 20 million. All these things can happen overnight in this country.
Well, I have a lot more questions to ask you. I'd love to ask you one about Aliyah and Christians immigrating to Israel, because in the past, that hasn't been the easiest process. But I'm going to have to wait for next time, Avi, to have you on, because I really got to do I have two more podcasts I got to do.
Same time, same station next week.
You know what, Avi, I can't wait to have you back on. What a blessing. And when I'll be in Israel soon enough, and I'll let you know when I'm coming. Love to get together with you. We'll do some videos over there together. It'll be fantastic. Love to see you.
Or else.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Todah Rabbah for joining us. That means thank you very much.